During my time at the university, I vividly remember the importance of my daily espresso routine and the absolute pleasure delight in eating a chocolate from the local shop. These are daily things we all take for granted, but I would argue they deserve a little bit of reflection. Have you ever found yourself thinking, where did this coffee I'm drinking comes from? Or what really inside this chocolate I'm savoring with so much? Hi, I'm BenGingi, a gastronome, baker, and a chef. And this is Gastronome Wanted, a podcast by the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo in collaboration with Cora Media. In this podcast, you will hear stories from graduates of our university to understand the world of gastronomic sciences and food cultures. In this episode, I would like to answer our questions regarding coffee and chocolate, so I asked two former students of the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo to join me today for our discussion. Anete Dinne and Manlio Larotonda. Anete Dinne is based in Barcelona, where she works as EU sales manager for an English specialty coffee trading house. She is originally from Latvia and moved to Italy in 2009 to attend a bachelor's degree program at the University of Gastronomic Sciences. Anete discovered her passion for coffee almost by accident. During university, she had learned some basic concepts about the world of coffee, but it was only after taking a course in sensory analysis at an Italian coffee company that she understood that this was her path.
As much as I remember, I actually wanted to work in wine after the university because that was just a thing that most people decided to do. Because, of course, it's also a very sensory product. And I really love doing different kinds of tasting. And before, I really had no idea that coffee could be as rich as wine, and in some aspects, even more so. So when I actually started cupping coffees, which means tasting different origins and different coffee processes, I was so surprised by the fact that you can actually do a blind tasting and imagine, okay, so this coffee is from Kenya and this coffee comes from Ethiopia because they have very distinct sensory profiles that I just thought this is a completely new world to discover.
Although innately born to chocolate, from his childhood in Turin, it wasn't until his adventure through the Colombian jungles that our second guest speaker, Manlio, found his deep love for chocolate. After an internship in South America, Manlio never went back. He stayed in Bogota and founded his company Cacao Dissidente. His main business today is selecting excellent local raw materials, working hand in hand with local producers to produce the highest quality chocolate.
Torino was so important for cacao during history and Italy in general. So I kind of start feeling responsibility somehow. And when I got to Colombia, and I got to Colombia for other reasons, because I was working with fishermen, other kind of products, I finally got to meet a cacao tree. During university, I got to meet a couple of chocolate makers. Actually, my first thesis in university was about chocolate. It was about the difficulties of B2B businesses to find good beans on the market. I got to a conclusion that there was a huge gap on this product, a huge black hole of knowledge. And the market still ambiguous and that doesn't really understands, even less than coffee, you know.
Coffee and chocolate, two products where there is a massive lack of knowledge. If I ask you to tell me what a specialty coffee is, would you be able to answer me? Don't worry, we are lucky enough to have an expert with us. Anete explained to me that specialty coffee is really a coffee that doesn't have primarily defects from a physical point of view. Additionally, it must be scored 80 points or higher on the 100-point scale when used for sensory evaluation.
One of the most important things, obviously, is the coffee's full traceability up to either the cooperative or up to the farm. So we should know who produced the coffee, the variety, processes, and most importantly also, of course, that the farmer was actually paid a fair price for their coffee.
Being aware of the supply chain and the origin of product that comes from such distant countries is no small matter. Consider that Europe is the world's largest consumer of coffee on a per-person basis, but it doesn't have the same lead in production. Coffee bean production is majorly based in Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia.
There are just so many producers who still don't know how to properly produce or how to process the coffee for it to actually be beneficial for them. So the problem is nowadays in origin countries for the producers who haven't still arrived to be able to produce coffee as specialty coffee because the quality is just not there, is because for them it's just something that you can sell. And the most shocking thing is that sometimes you talk to some producers and they have never tasted their coffee, which seems absurd because it's something that they actually cultivate themselves, but it's just some product that they can grow and they can sell, and that's it. So for us, the most interesting thing when we actually go to origin countries is to meet these producers.
Also for Manlio, the relationship with local farmers is fundamental. He told me that for many farmers in Colombia, cocoa meant a new life as it replaced illegal crops. With Cacao Dissidente, he has developed a precise methodology for collaborating with them.
The relation with the producers is really key, and we work in 8 different regions of Colombia, they're called departments, and with different kind of situations, with cooperatives, the producers, associations, private producers, always with the same methodology, more or less, that we developed for years, and we know it has a really big result on quality in a couple of harvests. So actually, we guide them to understand, and we help them because we say there's some points of control. You have to maybe, put a thermometer and write down what temperature it is. So with all that information, with the samples, we give them back huge feedback on production. So that's why in a couple of harvests, they raise their quality a lot. But they understand alone what they have to do. We're talking about specialty cacao. We pay by the score, the sensory score, and we have 3 levels of price. Why? That's another way, a methodology, so that they, want to get better to have more price.
But don't think that money is the only thing driving the producers to make better cocoa. There is something more.
But there's another element that is much more stronger towards their happiness. That just the money, well, we're all fine with that. Money brings some happiness. But it's the passion we really wake up inside of them. And really it's a new, I will exaggerate, the new reason of life for these people.
I personally love chocolate, and I use it often in my recipes. It is a unique product, perfect for unexpected combinations. And it's surprising that a product that is so popular is just by definition cocoa and sugar. Nothing more than that. Of course, the quality depends on the raw materials. Similarly to coffee, cocoa has entered the third wave movement into specialty cocoa.
So specialties, let's say that a sensory result and a sensory description, whatever, in all the agriculture products, for us is defined by the unique combination of 3 elements. One for sure is genetics, so by the variety. And here we are in Colombia in the center of the botanic center, the biological center of cacao. We have a huge biodiversity, still have to study all we have, So first is genetics, combined to all the processes we give to that genetics. How I decide that pod is ripe and I harvest that. That's key. To fermentation, drying, how I store it, how I transport it. And also the last elements we call terroir or origin, because the same variety with the same process into a different place is going to be slightly different. Also if it maintains the personality. So that's what we express, these 3 things in their unique combination. So we don't put vanilla, we don't put powder milk. We have to be as much pure as possible.
The chocolate that Manlio tells us about is very different from the industrial chocolate that many of us are used to. For Manlio, many of these products should not even be called chocolate. Anete's position is less harsh, and she sees progress in the industrial production of coffee. Indeed, if you want to drink a good specialty coffee, you no longer need to seek out the small boutique shop. You can easily drink it at home since some big coffee corporations are launching specialty coffee lines that can easily be found on supermarket shelves.
I do think that a lot of the bigger companies are investing in it because they see that the market is changing, and there are a few companies that are buying more fair trade, more organic coffees, and a lot of big companies that are actually buying specialty coffee. They might not market it as such, but they still do it. And at the same time, I know we always want to root for the smaller ones, because obviously I do as well. But we also have to say that not all of the bigger businesses are the worst in the world, because unfortunately, the bigger ones usually have the most funds to reinvest also in sustainability projects. Also, a lot of specialty coffee roasters who are not too transparent and using it a little bit as greenwashing. So, it's a very, very difficult subject. And I suppose that we should study each and every individual company to actually judge.
On the other hand, a sector that is still far behind in terms of coffee selection are restaurants. One of the most important things now is to convince restaurants that coffee is also very important, because everything always has a provenance. The process to change their mindset will be slow, but I do believe it eventually will become the norm.
I remember this was about 5 years ago, and I was actually with my ex-buddies, students from the university. We went to El Celler de Can Roca. The wine pairing with the menu was just so incredibly perfect. But at the same time, when we arrived to the famous moment of the coffee, I think me and my friend Claudia, who also works in coffee, we spent half an hour arguing with the sommelier, who knew everything about the wines. Just we were arguing about the coffee because they didn't have specialty coffee at that point, and he didn't understand the point that I was trying to make. And in the end, I think about 3 years ago, they started working with specialty coffee. So apparently, for some people, it is worth the trouble, because you just put some questions in their heads, and there you go. A few years later, they actually do change.
It is cool to see how a small personal act did in fact make a difference. People do change their habits when they become aware of them, but the key is to convey knowledge. In this way, we can push all people to look at what is behind the products they buy, shifting decision-making away from simply pricing, the most influential variable in purchase. High-quality products are more expensive, and unfortunately, the average consumer still prefers the lowest prices for many reasons. I asked Anete how this mentality could be changed when it comes to coffee.
I suppose it's just educating the consumer, because it's the same as when we are talking about meat. We would say buy more expensive and buy something local, grass-fed, etc., and consume less. So probably it should be the same to say to people, instead of drinking 10 espressos at the local bar every single day, drink 2 coffees every day, but just pay a little bit more.
It is simply a choice, and the same applies to cocoa. Manlio has great and simple tips to start making more sustainable choices when we buy chocolate.
First, read the labels when you see there's weird things. Imagine like sometimes it's not even chocolate, it's just something they took away the cocoa butter and they put some trans fat inside. And all that, the label has to say it. And also they have artificial flavoring like vanilla, a lot of like cacao that it says. So label, first thing. Second thing, price. It's difficult to think that I'm doing good things to the world if I buy a cheap product. And that's key. Everybody should know that. And maybe I have a product that is double price and half the weight. So it's 4 times more price. But I'm really like enjoying it more and doing good things to the world.
I think these last words we heard from Manlio perfectly sum up the meaning of this episode. In order to make healthier choices for ourselves and for the planet, we need to ask ourselves many questions about the food that arrives to our table. This is the first thing a gastronomist is taught. But believe me, you don't need to be a gastronome to be curious about these topics. Gastronome Wanted is a podcast produced by the University of Gastronomic Sciences of Pollenzo and Cora Media. Narrated by me, BenGingi, written with Alessandra Altimare, Eleonora Bergoglio, Ilaria Galvano, and Luca Martinotti. Studio recordings by Radio Brown The Rocks. The sound engineer for the recordings is Roberto Fortunato. Post-production and sound design are by Jacopo Rainero. Sound and music supervision is by Andrea Girelli. Content supervisors are Graziano Nani and Francesca Berardi for Cora Media. Production is by Eleonora Bergoglio. Production support is by Monia Donati for Cora Media and Paolo Ferrarini.